just the other day, me and Pat were playing with kind of the ChatGPT and the Stable Diffusion with some of the images. And we said, I wonder what happens if we type in Hobart waterfront. Typed it in and 6 images come up and you look at them all and instantly we both look, oh, that's Hobart. But
from the thumbnail side, they looked freaking like Hobart.
Oh, no way.
But as you then went into it, you're like, hold on a sec. Like, there is a mountain kind of shape in the background, but that's not our mountain. There's like a salamanca looking, like it all looked 90% right, but was wrong. But speaking of identity, anyone that wasn't a Hobartian could look at it and be like, that's Hobart.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess considering that, thinking of that, it's like, that's a really good roadmap to be like, let's not stray too far from here.
Going once, going twice, sold. You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and it gives me great pleasure to be hitting off on episode 150. We're halfway to a cake, boys. Welcome back to The Property Pod. Yep, deep cut. If you were with us back at episode 100, we got an ice cream cake. Oh, no. I just realised Valhalla's closed.
Yeah, think about this though. We've got 50 episodes to get the Cheesecake Shop on board as a sponsor.
Okay, I don't mind this.
We'll pitch you guys every week if we get one free cake.
That's a solid year.
Yeah.
Year we could get this rolling.
Well, John, yes, it is a solid year. I wanted to talk to you firstly about your attendance record of late.
Has been the best.
Yeah, I've been looking back, and I think we've had 3 unannounced absences.
Yes.
We'd like to know more. Tell us. You don't have a note from your mum. We'd like to know where you've been because we've missed you.
What happened?
We bloody missed you, mate.
I think it was a note from the doctors, and then I was in Launceston. And
I do remember one. One was the principals thing.
2 of them were the principals things.
Were they?
Well,
they're one Launceston, one. Okay.
Yeah,
one Lonnie, one Hobart.
All right.
Yeah. So it's, and then I think there was I got a note from the doctors.
Yeah, righto.
What I don't understand though, John, is as the principal hosting the principals forum, why did you schedule it on recording day?
Well, Kevin Sheedy, hard to reschedule.
We're going to go that way, are we?
I wouldn't want to cross old Sheets. I reckon he's a pretty serious guy. If you said, Sheets, I can't show up, I got a podcast to record with my mates.
I
reckon he'd crack the whip on you.
I refuse to accept responsibility for my own lack of attendance, and I'll blame everyone else I can.
No, look, honestly, we have missed you. It's been lean. We've missed a few weeks. There was illnesses in my family, but we are back on track for our weekly podcasts leading into Easter. So we'll go onwards and upwards with the show and see how many weeks we can go in a row before we let you all down.
Yeah. We'll put a note up like the ticket for no accidents in the workplace.
Ticking over.
I actually
go back to 0 too frequently.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that. Yeah. Hit us with what's been happening, J-Mac. What's been happening in your world? Because, everyone's missed you. We want to know what's happening out there for you.
I wish my life was more exciting. But it was just it was uncanny. Each Wednesday we we're up at Launceston for the REOT board meeting, awards or something, and then
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
There was the principals forum, which was really cool because getting introduced Kevin Sheedy was really good fun. I swear to God, he was a couple of pints in there when he started. He had
what time in the morning was it?
He didn't show till the afternoon. But I had to do the opening address and then emceeing. But man, he had some energy. He just had that, that little bit of an edge.
He's got that storytelling vibe where you just know that if you were sitting in, actually, it reminds me a bit of yourself in that you would start a story somewhere and you're thinking, where the hell is this thing going to go? And then at the end, you're wound up with like, geez, I'm motivated to kick some goals.
Yeah, just he comes right back into
some goals.
Yeah, footy.
Yeah, I got it.
But that was really good. No, man, the only one of the little happy moments is because I've got like a cool sports watch.
Cool sports.
Oh, cool hip sports watch. Look out. We were talking about sponsorship from the Cheesecake Shop, but let me tell you about my cool hip sports watch.
What's your cool sports watch
My
got to
cool
say?
sports watch is that one of the Phoenix Sixers. So it's like the whole thing's just designed just for sports, which is great because I don't do any of it.
Yeah. I'm big on sports.
Oh, I can't wait where this story's going.
But what I've been doing is since the fun run we did, I've been every day doing another couple hundred
Couple hundred kilometres. Holy
That's
shit.
why he hasn't been here.
I've defined a new class of ultra marathon called ultra marathon.
So a couple hundred metres is, I think, where you're going.
Yeah. So that's been a slow progression. But then I jumped on the scales yesterday and realised I've put on weight. And this is just going in reverse at this point. I'm doing more exercising, so I'm gonna.
Maybe it's muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat.
I hope so. I'm reluctant to believe that right now. So I'm going to have to add more things to be able to track with my sports watch.
Well, just tracking here on the podcast, I reckon you could go back to episode 10. I wouldn't recommend going back to episode 10, but we're at 150. How many 2.0s, 3.0s, 4.0s? How many
John.
body changes has John gone through across the journey?
Couple, I actually remember he was going to the gym frequently there for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Much like our episodes. We get to a point where it just stops.
Consistency is key.
I won't say my discipline relating to fitness is very consistent.
Well, I'm going to put it out here, John. If you're only running an extra 10 to 20 metres per day, 200 per day. All right, well, it's going to take a while for you to get to a decent number that's going to have an effect.
That's right. But
Do you run 100 extra further and then 100 back? Like, is that the 200?
no, it's just because I just do it at the rugby oval near home.
Yeah.
So I'm just running around those back and forth and then doing sprints and stuff in between. But just make sure before the session's ended, they've just gone a little bit further.
Nice.
A little bit
Nice.
further.
Just keep building. I did hear an analogy yesterday that was pretty good. It was like something along the lines of, if you think about the page in a phone book, phone book. Now, kids, a phone book is something that you used to search through. It was yellow, had lots of phone numbers in it. A phone book, the pages are so thin and one by its own, really weak. But if you think about the whole phone book, very thick.
Yeah. That becomes a strongman competition.
Boom.
Unfortunately, these days, I don't know if that's true because the phone book's only about
Yeah, well, true, yeah.
But in 1990...
Where this story
You'd
should have
prop up
been
furniture
left.
with those bad boys, like you could build a house.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a new and improved John almost.
Yeah.
I like it.
But I'm measuring the distance, measuring the changes. So you've got me that idea of, the day since the last works accident. I'll set up a little counter.
So are we going to share how many kilometres we're up to?
It's 3.2.
Nice.
3.2.
Snap. Well done, J-Mac.
But, I mean, because you blitzed it, I was impressed with your fitness, mate. Smashing the 5Ks without really having to worry about it.
I can run.
You've got a pretty damn good base fitness.
I can run, but that's about it. I don't enjoy it, but I just do it.
Just get to the end. I did say this is completely off topic. None of this has been on topic for 150. We could probably get through 150 without any real estate talk if we really want to. This is, John, I'm blaming you. This is what happens when you don't show up for the shows. We've got all this pent-up stuff that we want to talk about that we don't talk about. So we're just going to drop it all in one big episode of craziness.
No, the mistake is asking me questions, and I've got irrelevant stuff to talk about.
I can't even remember what I was going to say. We're talking about running. Oh, Diplo. The Diplo. You know that?
This is really off.
Oh, yeah. Diplo, the record producer, DJ, he ran the LA marathon the other day, and they said, "How did you do that?" He said, "I just took heaps of shrooms and LSD beforehand, and I went on a real trip." And I was like, I never would consider that as a good tip. All he wanted to do was beat Oprah's time, and he apparently did that on a real trip. So shout out to.
That's funny.
Well, his would not only would have been physical, but spiritual at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, what a journey.
Yeah. Well, I saw one where there was a duck that was actually participating in a walkathon, and it went all the way and finished, and they ended up giving it a medal.
I like that.
It was terrific.
I do like that.
Could have been a goose, either way.
I think this episode's a goose.
Yeah, this is a golden goose. We're all going to 150 episodes of absolute rubbish. Do you want to try and talk about what I put the show notes together? See how we go.
Yeah.
I did think I just saw just this week the Hobart City Council put out plans for or release a draft for the future of what our city could look like, of what Hobart could be in the next 20 years. It looks pretty cool. I thought we could talk about it.
I really like it. I love that it's been broken into what they describe as precincts.
Yeah, were you feeling New York?
Yeah, I was.
I knew
was
you
like,
would.
man, this feels like we're shifting gear.
Yeah.
We're going downtown.
Yeah, so hit us with the precincts. What do we got?
We've got the Central, the Civic and Cultural. Then we have the Innovation Precinct, the Trinity Hill, and the Rivulet. Now, the Rivulet, straight away, all I could think about was like an underground precinct.
yeah.
Like, you know, where
That's where the Ninja Turtles would live.
Spraying all the alleyways underground.
No, I initially thought the same thing. I looked at it and I was just like, they've broken into these like 5 little areas. I'm just like, it's like the 5 boroughs of New York. Like, it's
awesome.
We're the next New York. Look out, baby. Like, we got this. But so I guess the aim is to strike a balance between managing the future growth of the city, but maintaining the character and charm. So you often hear these documents will come out and they'll say like, we don't want to completely turn it into this urban megapolis city.
Yeah.
We want to keep Hobart as it is, but we just need to future-proof it and make it a place that will work 20 years from now. So
for sure.
I think one of the key factors that is discussed in the document is that I think it's something like 47,000 population increase of 47,000 people across like the next 20 years just for the city of Hobart alone.
Yeah.
So where do you house those people? Where do you put them? How do you make the city work for that many people, having people being able to transit through and around the areas? Mm-hmm. So a lot of thought's gone into that. And then I know another key factor that is always a big player when it comes to Hobart and Hobartians is the height of buildings. Yeah. You cannot mess with the height of the buildings, but a bit of consideration's been put into that as well. So I thought we could talk around it, see what we thought, and if not, we'll just go back to talking rubbish as we were, and people can say 150, what an episode.
Yeah, and we can. Well, I suppose that this makes me sound cooler than I am, but in
most things do.
In Budapest, what was fascinating with that, is when you got up on top of the hill, they had a building restriction limit of 5 stories, which couldn't exceed a specific. I think it was the cathedral in the centre part of the city. So when you look back, like it was just surreal. Like all of them were exactly 5 stories, and just went across a sea of old buildings.
Yeah,
which is really cool looking at it now, but obviously it was a huge hindrance in terms of the city because it can't exceed a certain capacity. But one thing about it is you can absolutely look at that and see that, go, wow, that's Budapest. And I think one of the great things about Hobart before us, where we absolutely do need to rethink it, is it still has a very, very unique, this is a Hobart city feel.
Yeah.
Whereas I sense, in a lot of other just highly metropolitan cities, you could locate yourself in a bunch of them across the world, and you wouldn't really sit there and go, I'm in a specific city. So I guess in that sense, where they're trying to ensure that the historic element and the building limitations are there, it still has that unique identity that's aesthetic.
Speaking of identity, it's like a really funny one. It's not exactly talking to this document, but just the other day, me and Pat were playing with kind of the ChatGPT and the Stable Diffusion with some of the images. And we said, I wonder what happens if we type in Hobart waterfront. Typed it in and 6 images come up, and you look at them all and instantly we both look, that's Hobart. But
from the thumbnail side, they looked freaking like Hobart.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. But as you then went into it, you're like, hold on a sec. Like, there is a mountain kind of shape in the background, but that's not our mountain. There's like a Salamanca looking, like it all looked 90% right, but was wrong. But speaking of identity, anyone that wasn't a Hobartian could look at it and be like, that's Hobart.
Yeah.
So, I guess considering that, thinking of that, it's like, that's a really good roadmap to be like, let's not stray too far from here. Just even the colours and everything that was used. And obviously what it's doing is taking a bunch of images of Hobart and smashing them together and then putting an output that is very close to that.
Yeah.
But it was super cool just to see, be like, that's like our city. You could almost turn it down into a 5 colours and you'd be like, they're the colours of Hobart.
That's cool. Yeah,
it was sweet. But speaking of like the height of the buildings, one of the crazy things that I saw in the document is basically, if you look at the way the high rises are now, that the plans aren't like to have extra sections where there'll be these brand new high rises. Yeah. It'll kind of maintain the the views and make sure that people in all the areas where they are able to still have the views they have with the central.
It's interesting. The document outlines that for the central precinct that they are proposing buildings of up to 60 metres in height, so 15 to 18 stories, and then lower heights in the Trinity Hill and Rivulet precincts of anywhere between 9.5 metres in height. So it looks like they're trying to figure out an area where we will allow for larger buildings to accommodate more people, but then we'll also have areas that keep that charm and that older sort of feel. So I think it could be a nice balance.
Yeah, so the heights of them look like it's about 60 metres for the biggest ones, which is about an 18-storey building, and then the lower heights in the Trinity Hills and Rivulet is like 9 metres, which I think...
15 to 18 stories, according to the document.
Isn't that the highest the big ones would go? Isn't 60 metres?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, apologies.
So that would only be like a 5-storey building.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see that they have thought about that and trying to allow the city to grow and to expand, but without losing its so-called character that people fall in love with.
Yeah, and I think in the document it said careful consideration was made because past developments have gone for these big tall super towers, and it's just like
they're just going
no chance.
Yeah. Well, see, I mean, they've gone into talking about transport, because I suppose the biggest thing about opening up to available car parking or cycling or better walking facilities, etc., is this, and I find this interesting about areas of activation. Where, like, obviously all these areas are supposed to have a opening to a specific purpose, I guess, and it's defining how they're going to be utilised and how the planning will interact with each other. But when you say, because I've never been to New York, so when you talk about the boroughs, like the different boroughs, is that because all of them are a mix of everything, or they all have a specific purpose?
Well, there's just like the financial district. There's what they describe as downtown. There's midtown. There's uptown.
Gotcha. Okay.
Uptown?
So this is funny because we were talking about the Beastie Boys before the show. I always think of the Beastie Boys songs. That's Brooklyn, Bronx, the Queens, Manhattan, from the Battery to the top of Manhattan.
We're not very good at describing.
So there's the 5. Yeah, basically they're all split into your Harlem and all the area where certain gender.
I think if I'm only guessing, but I'm assuming the boroughs came about with, because New York is such an immigrant city when it was built.
Yeah.
Little, I guess, towns inside towns sort of built up over time. So, you've got districts where a lot of certain types of immigrants sort of came together and built an area up, and then that has now sort of resulted in different styles of architecture and different styles of buildings sort of forming in little clusters.
Yeah, gotcha.
Is that how you describe it?
That's pretty good. I've just done a Google search, and the Beastie Boys were correct, and they taught me well. I got that right. But yeah, there's lots of different little neighbourhoods and districts, but yeah, they're the 5 key ones, and it looks like it's the way everybody kind of entered the city and set up shop.
Set up shop.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Gangs of New York?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I knew you'd be all about that.
Okay. Well, there was, because I was part of the. Because Glenorchy's gone through a similar process with theirs. That's
and that's why when I was looking at this, I was like, this would be so interesting to have it next to our Glenorchy plan, because that's obviously right in our backyard.
Yeah.
But what's happening in Central Hobart is kind of, talks to the rest of our big city.
Absolutely. And well, one of the architects, when I can't remember what the question was raised, if it was me or one of the other people, but
claim it. It was you. It was you. You said it, John.
Well, I'm worried that it's going to be a bad question, so I'm going to leave it out. But where the thing was ensuring that there's no dark zones. So there's no, as they redeveloped this site, they didn't want areas that just go dark for extended periods of time. So you might have there's a street that's activated, and when they mean activated, like people constantly coming and going and having a purpose, and then all of a sudden you've got 3/4 of the building behind completely in the dark because it doesn't get utilised whatsoever.
Yeah.
So and with that, then they wanted to make sure that it tries to all integrate into each other quite well. So I suppose with looking at these different purposes for Hobart, if I walk through in my head now, if you walk through at the moment, nothing really makes sense. It's sort of all just come together almost accidentally. You've got an old pub over here, and then there's a clothing shop, and then a random dry cleaners, and a cafe, and then you've got to go down. There's not really any
rhyme or reason.
Yeah, and I wonder then if that by trying to define these in their future planning and approvals network, they're ensuring that, look, if you want to do this, we want to encourage you to go here.
Yeah, for sure.
If that's what one of the defining purposes of having those different zones are.
One thing I didn't even look at while I was looking at the whole thing? Football stadium. Is that even on there? Like, that was obviously been a huge...
No, it falls outside the zone they're talking about.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It falls right on the out of the innovation zone.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that because they've identified that as not part of the city part.
I went through the whole thing yesterday. I didn't even clock whether that was
That's
something
in the beyond the planned area zone is what it's nominated as.
Sounds like the Lion King out in the whatever the light touches.
You can absolutely understand why they didn't include that. There's no way nothing of this would have happened if all of a sudden they included Macquarie Point in that section.
I guess one of the things I just wanted to touch on was kind of housing and the way it would work. So they want to try and go with this medium density or building these apartments that can house a bunch of people, remove homelessness. I was quite shocked. I was in the city just the other day for the first time in a long time. And, the amount of people that were living rough and kind of on the streets, I was like, holy moly, this is, quite dire. It's definitely changing. And we're about to get into winter where things will get really, really tricky for those people sort of thing. But then the other one was key workers, accommodation for those. So you think about the...
doctors, nurses.
Exactly. All the stuff that kind of happened that we kind of took advantage of pre-COVID, and now that it's kind of like, holy moly, we need places for these people to stay and work and
it looks like they've identified two of their zones, which is the Rivulet zone and the Trinity Hill zone, as being encouraged to build high quality, medium density housing. So, they're on what they class as the outskirts of this city plan, but, at the grand scheme of things, they're literally right in the centre.
Well, and it's rather than having to go out to the suburbs and then travel in and spend your time and work out transport and stuff. If you can have a scootering distance or a walking distance to your accommodation, if you're a nurse or a doctor or someone that is an essential worker, power to you if you can make that work.
It's you can see there's been a lot of thought put into it.
I actually had a lot of fun going through it, and I was like, I don't know if we'll be able to have a full episode on it, and we...
I don't think we're clever enough to really unpack it completely.
No, but it's interesting just to think, like, this is what our city could be 20 years from now. 20 years ago, would the planners have thought, this is what Hobart City will look like?
Well, that's it. Like, I'm looking here at the back when we're talking about heights and the medium density areas, which are what they're zoned as Trinity Hill and the Rivulet zone. They're proposing 3 and 4 and some 5-story properties in those areas for accommodation. So 5-story buildings is huge for accommodation to build up sort of
for our standards. 100%.
And then moving all the way into the city centre, which, like Aaron said, 15 to 18 stories, but they've got a nice blend in between of zones which could fall into a 6 and 8 story. So it sort of is looking like that peak in the middle and out to sort of nice, even level.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to describe before is like, like it kind of all sits in the basin of having the tall ones in the middle, and it doesn't extrude out too far and then have all these like little mini...
Which is great because if you remember not long ago, there was a Chinese development company trying to do a hotel down on the Hobart waterfront. And I think they were trying to do like a 20-story building that...
It was a monster.
Yeah, but that wouldn't fall within this planning scheme because then that's just going to be a high-rise in the middle of nowhere by itself. When now that would feel better if it was in the centre of the city in amongst others and not feel out of place or ruining the aspect of what Hobart is. So the thoughts around how they're laying it out, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and if you're interested in it and you want to have a look at it, a draft plan is available on the City of Hobart website. It's open for comment until the 30th of April this year, so 2023. You're invited to provide feedback online via the City of Hobart Your Say website or in person at pop-up hubs. So tomorrow, no, that one's no good because... that's past the 23rd of... sorry. I was just looking, I was like, that we'll be well gone. We'll be on Easter holidays by then, so don't worry about that. But on the 23rd of April, if you're at the Farmgate Market, there'll be a stall there that you can go and have a yarn about, and there'll be people talking to it. And there's a live-streamed panel later in the month, Tuesday the 18th of April, 5:30 to 7:30, on the future of Hobart, Shaping the City online talk. So if you've enjoyed listening to this, you'll enjoy listening to that.
I reckon I'd be going to the Farmgate Market for my information.
I reckon you would be
coffee coffee and some breakfast while I'm there and really enjoy the morning because the market is a great spot.
It is. It's
on
a
a
cracker.
Sunday.
It is. It's very,
I actually think it's better in winter than it is in summer.
I agree. No,
I
I've
reckon
been...
if you get there at 8 a.m. and it's like 2 degrees and you're rugged up and you get your coffee and the steam is coming off that market, you cannot beat a Sunday morning that starts like that.
Doesn't Parker have like a little favourite store
Philly
there?
cheesesteak.
So good.
He's not there every week though, so that when he doesn't turn up, there's also
Big trouble.
immunity that always takes place. But no, get around the Farmgate Market, guys, because that is brilliant.
Awesome. Look, I don't have time to talk about it, but I did see an article while I was researching. Yeah, I can do what I want. Yeah, it's 150.
We're pretty much wrapped up, but let's keep going.
No, look, I just want to put it out there. While I was researching all this, I was on the City of Hobart website and I saw this really cool plant giveaway idea. So, you know how they kind of changed the ruling on nature strips recently, where the council in the City of Hobart won't be maintaining them anymore. So it comes onto the owners or the tenants to be looking after that. They're giving away plants so that you can pretty up your nature strip or pretty up your yard. So
who's giving it away?
The City of Hobart, the council.
No way.
So there'll be at least 1,000 plants given away, ranging from native Tasmanian and Australian plants up to your lavender and rosemary. So you can be kind of making a little veggie patch if you want to, so you can sort it out. You can get up to 20 plants of your choice. It is a first in, best dressed kind of scenario. You just have to register online. So we'll be directing people to the Hobart City website again. I just love the idea of free plants. I'm loving getting in my garden.
Right.
I just saw it. I thought, this is cool. I'm telling people.
Well, I saw an idea once where we've got there was an image of the biodiversity in just a nothing but grass. You know, like in terms of insects.
Yep.
It had like flies and something else. But then, just like
Such a good story already.
But then it went through, like if you had the vegetable gardens and normal days, like the whole, they had bees and everything, like huge biodiverse area.
Yeah.
And the cool idea was if everyone grew vegetables in their front yard, like imagine all the
Your nature strip, everyone was just...
everything was growing veggies. Like the food would be like inexhaustible if everyone knew how to do it.
There'd be an abundance of stuff out there.
It's kind of cool then if rather than just the nature strip being just
A pretty bit of grass that you
just gets mowed and dry.
Yeah.
Like it ends up being a really cool biodiverse little section all around the place.
I once saw a story about vegetables too, John. When I was in New York, there's all these high-rise gardens on all the roofs.
Right,
and it's like urban farms, they call them.
Oh, that's cool.
I love that stuff. I think that stuff's super cool when you kind of can see, the hanging gardens off the side of things and we're growing our produce and I know there's a bunch of stuff.
The building that everyone lives in, there's a farm on top, a community garden where everyone can go and grow vegetables and food.
I love that. Yeah. Because, there's a couple around here. Up at Springfield Avenue's one, but there aren't too many.
Yeah, no, they're great ideas. So, get
a plant.
Get a plant.
Motto of this whole episode is get a plant.
Register for it. It's it's something cool I saw. I enjoyed it. So, hit up the City of Hobart website, hobartcity.com.au. There's heaps of stuff on there.
They're all that plants, like plants and...
Plants and automobiles. Name of the episode. All right, 150. We did it. It's so good to have you back, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
We will be back next week, and we'll try and stay on topic as well as we can.
No, I love you.
No promises, though.
Thanks, guys.
All right, see ya. Bye. You have been listening to The Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.